Well, we're happy to have you today at our Shepherd's Bookshelf. We've been looking at some heavier, maybe theological works and challenges, some good, some not so good. But we're going to look today at something a little different. It's in the area of Christian knowledge and wisdom, and how we can organize our lives and structure our lives so that we're growing in wisdom and in the knowledge of the things of the Lord, and making the best use of our time and our abilities. So one such book that hits that category is The Wisdom Pyramid. This was put out a couple of years ago by Brett McCracken, who has written this book. He's part of the Gospel Coalition, senior editor for them. And he structures the book, if you see the cover here, after the food pyramid. And this is one of those things that probably most of us know about and know too much with. And the food pyramid is at the bottom of the pyramid are the more substantial, healthier, nutritious foods. As you move up the pyramid, the foods and meals and so forth become less substantial and less healthy. So at the very top, you have your desserts and the things that you probably ought not eat too much of, but you love. Well, this wisdom pyramid is modeled after that. Only the issue here is truth, our intake of truth. And how do we learn truth? How do we learn wisdom? He thinks we need a better diet and better habits to intake good information. And in order to do that, he recommends this food pyramid, where the more nutritious sources of truth, the better stuff is at the bottom, and build on those more nutritious portions of truth or aspects of truth are the things that are sometimes helpful, but not as necessary. So that's kind of the direction he goes. He spends about a third of the book talking about why we need a wisdom pyramid and why we need to think about wisdom. He gives a number of issues that pressure us and face us in our society. It causes us to be have deficits in the area of wisdom. He starts off with the postmodern society that we live in, which really debunks truth, period. Then the mental health challenges that are around the psychobabble and the various, some legitimate, some illegitimate issues related to that. Then he talks about the need to rewire our brains due to online intake. So he's not a very big fan of online knowledge, and we'll get to that a little later on. But he thinks we need a rewiring of our thinking, our brains. Then there's the explosion of information that erodes our ability to distinguish between the trivial and the important. We're just flooded through the social media, in particular, with all sorts of interesting things that really have very little value. And then there's a silence deficit. That is, most of us don't have much quiet time. We're surrounded with noise. Our work world is full of noise. Our homes are full of noise. When do we just sit down in a quiet environment and think and study and read and so forth? So these things add to the problems that we're facing today when it comes to wisdom. So the wisdom pyramid is a plan, he says, for stabilizing a sick society by making Christians wiser. And so that launches him into the second part of his book. And he begins here with several chapters, short chapters, and each chapter is going to deal with an area of need. So as he builds his pyramid, once again, remember, we're at the bottom of the pyramid. What is the most nutritious source of wisdom? Well, the two bottom lines here, the two most nutritious in order of importance, is the Bible and the church. So McCracken is right on here. Our source of wisdom and authority and knowledge is the infallible Word of God. And then built on that is the church itself, if it's doing its job as it should do, and is the pillar and support of truth, and it proclaims truth and systematically teaches truth, then turning to the church, a good Bible teaching church, is extremely important in developing a healthy spiritual diet of truth. And so he spends a great deal of time on that. In order to be God-centered, then we need a healthy spiritual intake of food. The third part of his pyramid, right here in the middle, is nature. He believes that that we love God and God created nature, therefore we should love the things that God has created and not ignore them. And in Psalm 19, in Romans chapter 1, and other places, we know there's much to be learned from God's creation. It's a witness for God. It's revelation from God in a general sense. It's not particular or specific revelation, such as Scripture, but there is a general revelation, and there's knowledge. We learn about the power of God. We learn something of the nature of God in nature, in looking at the world around us. And so he recommends that we take time to explore nature, to learn what we can from the creation that God has made, and to love that which God has made. He really recommends that we carve out time to be outdoors. And myself, I truly enjoy doing exactly that. I find it so refreshing, so insightful to get out into nature and enjoy it. I love reading books that talk about what we can learn from nature. And so the third source, the third level then on the pyramid scheme, the wisdom pyramid, is that of nature. Number 4 is connecting with other people and their ideas through books. I'm surprised he put this low, since he's a book lover, obviously. He's a writer of books. But, the writings of books are very mixed. Some of these books we read are very helpful. That's why we're going through this series together on the Shepherd's Bookshelf. Books are important, but the ideas are mixed. And so we can learn a great deal from other people through books and so forth, but we have to be selective, we have to be discerning, we have to be careful. He does recommend, however, that we read books like these rather than tweets and articles and blogs that he believes actually harms our thinking. They do not develop a literary thinking ability. It doesn't develop clear connections between ideas like books do. So he encourages us to be readers of books, not screen readers, not internet readers. Also, he says, read broadly. And we tend to read, if we're not careful, in the same literature that we like. We stay in the same silos. We read the authors we like. We read the ideas that we agree with. He encourages us to spread out our thinking, to broaden our thinking by reading books that challenge us, books that might not be exactly where we are, that might press us in a different direction. Maybe books we have to discern, but even if we're reading books that aren't always on page with us, there's still something that we may be able to learn from those books. But he definitely wants us to read in these books. Now, the last ones that he mentions here are 5 and 6. Number 5 is beauty. Beauty can be found in music, and in art, and in scenery, and in food, and in poetry. And he writes this: mankind's pleasure in poetry and pecan pie cannot be explained by the Darwinian account of human existence. I really like that. There's something to be gained from a good piece of pecan pie, and something to be gained from good poetry and other sources of beauty. Art. Most of us don't appreciate art all that much, but we probably should work on that a little bit. Art is very helpful. It is not at the bottom of the pyramid as foundational for truth, but it does have its place. And then the very top of the pyramid, the most insignificant, most unnutritious, I guess if that's the right word, in the wisdom pyramid is the internet and social media. I find it interesting he places the internet and social media a step below or worse than pecan pie. And I kind of buy that myself. I think it's a good idea. So he sees the information we're getting from those sources is very, very spotty. It doesn't challenge our thinking. It's not particularly helpful. It's repeating what other people have said without the research necessary and so forth. So he sees as the least helpful, and yet the one that more people turn to than any other, perhaps. So he offers these 5 habits based upon the pyramid scheme to broaden and cultivate wisdom in our lives. He doesn't, by the way, tell us to abandon social media and the internet, just use it much more wisely. So the wisdom pyramid then concludes with a chapter that looks like, of what wisdom looks like. And he has two good quotes here. One quote is, "Our age is unwise, in large part because we're going deaf from the calamity of losing our ability to listen well, if we listen at all. We're the noise level. I said that word wrong, but the noise level, all the shouting, all the verbiage, all the social media, all these things are crowding us in, and we don't take the time to think and have wisdom." And then another quote: "The most important lesson of this book is that in order to understand what wisdom looks like, we have to understand who wisdom looks to, and listen to, and loves." That's a great quote. If we want to know what wisdom looks like, we need to look to the one who gives wisdom, and listen to that one, and love the one who gives that wisdom. So I recommend the Wisdom Pyramid. I'm going to just throw in another one real quickly here called the Checklist Manifesto. This might help also in the same regard. This is an interesting book that tells us in very simple terms how to get our act together, how to organize our lives in ways that are very simple and yet kind of profound. Just a simple checklist of what we're accomplishing, what needs to be accomplished, and so forth, and helps in a great deal in our thinking and in going forward in our priorities, as the Wisdom Pyramid would suggest. He also gives very interesting stories taken from medicine, aviation, construction, national disasters, and factories and investments, to show how each of these categories use checklists to help in our everyday life. One of the ways that you'd see that is in aviation, how they check off things before they take off on a plane. The surgeons do the very same thing. And we can do something very similar in our life in organizing ourselves. I've always been a checklist kind of guy, and this has served me very, very well throughout my life. But having read the Checklist Manifesto, I upped my game a bit, and especially as I supervise others in our staff, helping them and knowing what they should be doing and helping them get it done. This book has been very helpful. I recommend it to all of our staff. I recommend it to you. That would go along secondarily to the Wisdom Pyramid. I hope these two book reviews are helpful to you.